Pirates, Chapter 4. William Bonnet sat down in the captain's chair. He wore a black cotton officer's jacket with gold buttons, over a red and black striped sweater. His black rubber-skin jeans were tucked into his boots, and a pair of antique spectacles perched on the end of his nose. He also wore a large gold earring in his right ear. His long brown hair hung loosely over his shoulders, and his pale blue skin seemed almost luminous under the neon lights of the bridge. He was a middle-aged man, in his mid-40s. The first child to be born on the moon, and the last. Armstrong City was abandoned shortly after the birth of the mutant. Captain Bones to engineering. Status, please. Engines operating at maximum efficiency, Captain, replied Morgan. Captain to pilot. Yes, sir, replied the sharp metallic voice of Exquimilian. Several wires were attached to a chrome skull cap on the cyborg's bald, scarred head, and a visor covered his eyes. His torso was grafted to the cockpit, and his robotic arms danced across the console, pressing buttons and pulling switches. Prepare for takeoff, orders Captain Bones. Yes, sir, replied Exquimilian. Captain to engineering. Pump up the thermoreaction chamber. Yeah. And get us out of here, mister, ordered the blue-skinned man in the captain's chair. Yes, sir, acknowledged the cyborg. Engage impulse engines, steady as she goes. There was a low rumble like distant thunder as the Quadrag mercenary left orbit. Nice paint job, by the way. Whose idea was that? Asked the captain. The Quadrag mercenary had been repainted in white and black stripes. A skull and crossbones motif emblazoned across her hull. That was mine, gurgled Guacamole. Captain Bones spun around in his chair and gazed at the beautiful woman floating in a giant fish tank in the far right-hand corner of the bridge. Guacamole swam about in the luminous pink water. Her emerald green scales glistened under the bright cabin lights, and her round black eyes stared unblinkingly in the direction of the captain. Are you comfortable in there? Asked the blue man. Guacamole gurgled. It isn't quite as spacious as the oceans of Atlantis, but it will suffice. Well, as chief navigator, will you please tell me where the hell is the planet Minova? Guacamole pointed a webbed finger to a small group of stars on the view screen. The Andromeda cluster. She gurgled. The planet Minova is renowned in the 7th quadrant for its hospitality towards the cutthroats, villains and pirates of the universe. The planet is famous for its drinking establishments and gambling casinos, not to mention its brothels, although I have heard that their eating habits leave something to be desired. Apparently the Minovians only eat live animals. Sounds like a good place to find a crew. William Bones turned his chair to face the view screen. Captain to pilot. Exquimilian, sir. Here, sir. Set course to Minova. Light speed. The metal doors of the bridge slid open, and a tall, snake-headed woman stepped out of the elevator, carrying a large ball of red fur under her left arm. Ebony dropped the ball of fur at the captain's feet. I found this under my bed, she hissed. Slowly, the fur ball uncoiled, and a small red Felician boy stood up. And what have we here? Asked the captain. A stowaway? Please, sir, purred the young boy. Don't kill me, please, stuttered the timid creature. The boy knelt down in front of the captain's chair. My name is The Felician purred softly. Captain Bones scratched his bearded chin. Well, the captain stuttered. Well, boy, he paused. By rights, I should put you into the nearest airlock and shoot you into space. The child looked frightened and tears welled up in his green cat's eyes. Stop snivelling, the captain sighed. You might actually be of some use to me. The boy smiled. Is it true what they say about Felician's hearing? The red furry cat-like child nodded. In that case, the captain started again. In that case, Mr. Ben Gunn, I could use a communications officer. He's a bit young to be joining a pirate crew, isn't he? Hissed Ebony, prodding the boy in the back with her left forefinger. I am 20 turns of the purple moon, smiled the boy. How old is that in Earth years? Asked the captain. What is an Earth year? Replied Ben Gunn. Captain Bones patted the boy's head. Well, what is a pirate ship without a cabin, boy? He tickled the soft pelt of red fur behind the Felician's left ear. Ben Gunn purred contentedly. The snake-headed Medusa smiled at the boy. Very well, Captain, she hissed. And if my darling husband forgets to pack enough food rations for our journey, we could always eat the little furry creature for breakfast. Ebony licked her lips with the long yellow forked tongue. Ben Gunn shook with fear and curled himself back into a ball of soft red fur. Captain Bones stood up. I'll be in my cabin if you need me. I have guests to entertain. Ebony, you have the bridge. Yes, sir, hissed the snake-headed woman, stepping over the fur ball. The Quadrach mercenary landed on the planet Minova 1 week later. Cornelius Blackheart lay on the captain's bed, smoking a short, thick, sweet-scented orange Felician cigar. I hope you didn't mind showing a cabin, smiled the blue-skinned man sitting at the end of the bed. The boy laughed. It was a lot more fun than sleeping on my own, chuckled the green-skinned youth. When will I see you again? Asked Captain Bones, pulling up his jeans. Any time you like, smiled Corn. He reached into his pocket and took out a small black holographic cartridge. It's called The Cat's in the Cradle, smiled the blue-skinned man. I made it last week with 3 Felician boyfriends of mine, explained the beautiful Panashian youth. I hope you enjoy watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. Are Felicians good in bed? Asked Captain Bones. Corn coughed. Excellent, they are very gentle lovers. He coughed again. But now I think I've got fur balls in my throat. Billy laughed. Well, I just hope to see you on deck. I'll try not to take too long, Corn grinned. Used to taste really good. So, where is your next job? Asked the blue-skinned man. The Panashian smiled. Octavia. Captain Bones laughed. Octoplads have 8 arms, don't they? Corn put his hands into his pockets. I'm sure they'll keep me busy for a while. Luckily, I'm a good swimmer. The blue man buckled his belt. Oh, you'll have to save me a copy. I'll deliver it by hand, laughed the bleached-hedged Cornashian. Bullseye is only a short 2-hour shuttle flight from the spaceport. But over the centuries, it has become more of a shantytown than a city. Home to alien refugees, vagrants and pirates. And a hunting ground for bounty hunters. Calico Jack went in search of food supplies and barrels of the local liquor. Minovan wine is known to be a powerful aphrodisiac with strong hallucinogenic properties. Morgan, Guacamole and Ben Gunn decided to stay on board the ship with Exquimilium. Captain Bones, Cornelius Blackheart, Gunner Low and Ebony followed the tall, muscular, bull-headed man down a narrow alley. Red and green neon signs hung from the walls of the various buildings, flashing on and off under the smoky orange glare of the Minovan sky, and the sweet scent of burning insects wafted through the warm night air. The giant stopped outside a large grey building. He pointed a finger to a green neon sign above the door. This is it, he grunted. Come and see, mi foch, which translated into human means the Palace of Perpetual Pleasure. Captain Bones gazed up at the stony face of his guide. Thank you for your help. The giant lay his heavy right hand on the blue man's shoulder. What about my payment? Let him go, ordered Ebony, prodding the giant Minova in the back with her back gun. The bull-headed man released his grip. William Bones stared at the Minovan's cloven hoofs. How would you like to come with us? He asked. I need a bodyguard. The giant tugged at his bushy black beard and blinked his big black eyes. My name is Teach, he grunted. He was wearing heavy metal body armour, and the large gold ring through his snout glistened under the orange glare of the Minovan moon. Come, he laughed, opening the door of the club. Let us make a hell of our own and see how long we can bear it. The Palace of Perpetual Pleasure is a busy place. It is situated in one of the less friendly parts of the city and is frequently visited by tourists, pirates, traders and cutthroats. Various alien species sat at metal tables, indulging in the delights of forbidden pleasures, and 4 octoplads were performing an intriguing mating ritual in an aquarium in the centre of the room, their pink tentacles splashing about in the cold, clear water. Corn pointed to the aquarium. There's my next ride. Don't lose that homing beacon, suggested Captain Bones. The green-skinned youth smiled. Oh, don't worry, I'll find you. He kissed the blue man on the lips and vanished into the crowd. The club was illuminated in red neon light, flashing on and off with the beat of the music. Billy Bones put his fingers in his ears. What the fuck do they call this? He shouted over the metal noise blasting through the enormous speakers in every corner of the octagonal-shaped room. Teach shrugged his heavy shoulders. Classical pop, he sighed. Captain Bones, Gunnerlow and Teach sat down at a table near the bar. I'll get the drinks then, shall I? Hissed Ebony. I'll have a Tarkalian brandy, replied Lowe. The snake-headed Medusa put her hands on her hips. I was being sarcastic, she hissed. Ebony returned half an hour later, carrying a tray of plastine beakers filled with various coloured fluids, and a bottle of Minovan wine. She was accompanied by a bald, pale-skinned humanoid female wearing a black latex thong and nothing else. Gold glitter glistened on the young woman's small, naked breasts. Ebony turned towards her new companion. This is Marie Reed. She works here, explained the snake-headed Medusan. The bald girl smiled a toothless smile. We met at the bar, she giggled. Ebony put the drinks on the table and sat down. Reed is a clone, an experiment in genetic engineering. Do we need a go-go dancer on board? Asked Captain Bones, sipping his Corellian beer. We need a science officer, hissed Ebony. And is she up for the job? Asked the blue man. The snake-headed woman kissed the clone on the cheek. Marie Reed stood up. Space exploration is the reason for my existence. I'm a scientist by nature and a stripper by necessity. My ship was destroyed by an association vessel. I managed to reach a life pod and escape. I was rescued by a Minovan freighter and ended up here. I am just trying to earn my passage home. And where is home? Asked Captain Bones. The planet High-Gas, replied the clone. Do you have any sisters? Grunted Teach. Actually, I have 500 sisters, all identical in every way. It's cold in space. Maybe I'd better go and find some clothes, suggested Captain Bones. Ebony stared at the fat, grey-skinned man sitting next to Teach. He was slumped across the table with his head in his hands and snoring loudly. Who was that? She asked. Teach nudged the fat man in the ribs and he sat up. The tubby grey alien stretched out his forearms and yawned. What's up? Captain Bones smiled. This is Bel Ami, our new doctor. Pleased to meet you, the fat man sighed. He carefully straightened his pink toupee and shook the Medusan's hand. Ebony looked puzzled. Thought Mimosans never left their homeworld. Dr. Ami rubbed his 3 blue eyes and yawned again. I was banished from Mormos for the crime of unnatural behaviour. What did you do? Asked Ebony. Well, as you know, on Mormos we are born into wedlock, explained Bellamy. When a male child is born, he is immediately betrothed to the first female child who is born after him. We are expected to spend our entire lives together. Dr. Ami sipped his vermin root beer. Our priests tell us that marriages are made in heaven. Obviously, they never knew my wife. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I fell victim to temptation. I had an extramarital affair. My sins were revealed, and I was banished into exile. I scorn any man who will submit to be governed by laws which rich men make for their own security, and who pin their faith on a pimp of a parson, a squab, who neither practices nor believes the lies he puts upon the chuckle-headed fools he preaches to. Was she pretty? Asked Reed. Who, the wife? Laughed the fat man in the pink wig. She's an ugly, skinny woman. With the face of a Victorian beetleworm and the temperament of a Catalan vot. Reed giggled. No, I meant your mistress. I didn't have a mistress, sighed the doctor. I had an affair with her brother. Ebony shrugged her shoulders. In my home world, the children are hermaphrodites, born with both male and female genitalia. When we reached the age of puberty, we decided which sex to adopt. Beep, 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 went the alarm on Captain Bones' wrist communicator. What's the problem? Asked the blue-skinned man. The image of Esquimilian appeared on the face of the watch. This is your early morning alarm call. Mr. Ackman has returned with his supplies, and the rest of the crew is growing restless. We'll be back at the ship in 5 hours, acknowledged the captain. William Bones pressed a small button on his wrist communicator, and the screen went blank. He stood up. Our presence is requested back at the ship. A young, pink-skinned man with spiky silver hair approached the captain's table. Excuse me, he whispered in a soft voice. Captain Bones gazed into the dark eyes of the beautiful stranger. What can I do for you? He asked, sitting back down in his chair. I've been watching you for some time now, smiled the bare-chested youth in his tight red shorts. He was a handsome man in his early 20s, similar in appearance to a human, but with very small ears and no earlobes. Gunnar grinned at the silver-haired youth. I know, I've been watching you. What do you want? The new arrival sat down in an empty chair. Are you a human? He asked, staring into Lowe's slanted eyes. Yes, I am. Then why is your skin yellow and your eyes so narrow? Asked the handsome young stranger. Cheng Lo laughed. I am Chinese, an Oriental. There are many different coloured humans. Some are brown, some are pink, some are yellow, and this one, he paused and glanced at his captain, is blue. The silver-haired youth looked at Captain Bones and laughed. I'm sorry. I thought you were a Galatian. It's an easy mistake to make, sighed the blue-skinned man. Actually, I was the first child to be born on the Earth's moon. And the last, added Lowe. The young silver-haired man frowned. Well, I suppose you are straight then, he asked. Captain Bones grinned. Give me a kiss and I'll tell you. The young man smiled. And what species are you? Asked Gunnar Lowe. I'm a Venusian, replied the youth. I heard what happened to your planet. Lowe took a sip of Minovan wine. I'm surprised anyone survived. It was a long time ago, replied the silver-haired Venusian. At least our people were prepared. Most of our ancestors left Venus on the colony ships before the apocalypse. The remaining scientists and volunteers took refuge underground in the hope of rebuilding our planet. Prepared for what? Asked the four-armed Mimosan, sitting at the table. The atmosphere of Venus was destroyed over 1,000 years ago. The environment suffered irreparable damage, caused by the waste from our chemical reaction plants. Our forefathers built underground cities below the planet's surface, and though we had the technology to cultivate food and oxygen, we had no way to repair the harm caused by the chemical waste. The young Venusian poured himself a glass of Minovan wine. At least we were aware of the impending disaster, and luckily we already had the technology for space travel. My great-grandfather used to tell me stories about the great exodus to a new homeworld. And where is this new homeworld? Asked Lowe. The boy shrugged his shoulders. We don't know. Our people lost contact with the colony ships 10 years after they left Venus. Did you like what you saw? Asked Captain Bones. Pardon? Replied the Venusian. When you were watching us, explained the blue-skinned man. The Venusian youth smiled at the captain. You are very handsome. I'm no oil painting, but thanks for the compliment. I hear that you're looking for a crew, continued the silver-haired Venusian. Do you have any qualifications? Asked the captain. The young man stood up. Let's go somewhere a little bit more private, and you can test me. The blue man pressed a button on his wrist communicator, and the face of the ship's cyborg pilot appeared on the screen. Yes, Captain, asked the sharp metallic voice of Esquimilian. I will be delayed for a short while. Tell Morgan to have the engines on standby. The pilot sighed. Yes, sir. How long do you think you will be? Captain Bones glanced towards the silver-haired youth. 12 hours or so. maybe a day. He pressed a button on his wristwatch, and the screen went blank. The blue man stood up. The rest of you had better make your way back to the ship. He looked towards his crewmates. Take the shuttle. Ebony licked her lips with a long forked tongue. And what about you? She hissed. I'll make my own way, replied the blue-skinned man. The young Venusian took hold of the captain's hand. We'll take the zoom tube. Teach stood up. I'd better come with you, Captain, he suggested. Billy Bones shrugged his shoulders. Stay with the others. I think I'll be safe enough tonight without a bodyguard. As you wish, replied the bull-headed Minova. The blue man followed the silver-haired youth up a flight of metal stairs. Where are we going? He asked. The Venusian smiled. I have a room upstairs. That's convenient, sighed Captain Bones. The youth shrugged his shoulders. It came with the job. I work here. I hope they pay you well for your services, smiled the blue-skinned man. Not a great deal, replied the young, handsome Venusian, unlocking the door of his quarters, but the rent is cheap. Do you enjoy the job? Asked Captain Bones. The youth laughed. It depends upon the client. Some aliens have very peculiar sexual organs. So I've heard, laughed the blue-skinned man. Billy Bones sat down on the bed and unbuttoned his jacket. So how much do you charge for a blowjob? The young Venusian stood in front of the blue man, clutching his groin with his right hand. Beads of sweat glistened on his smooth, naked chest. He wore several necklaces, silver rings on every finger, and a silver earring pierced his right nipple. The youth smiled. I'm off duty. Billy Bones took off his gold-buttoned black cotton jacket and unbuckled his belt. He put his hands around the boy's waist and pulled the young Venusian's red silk shorts down to his ankles. Ah, I see why they call Venus the planet of love. He clenched the boy's tight, firm buttocks and licked the tip of his long, thick, pink penis. Are all Venusians this well endowed? He asked, looking up at the young man's smiling, handsome face. Makes up for the small ears, laughed the silver-haired youth. The blue-skinned man stood up and took off his black and red striped woolen sweater. The young Venusian pulled the blue man's black rubber-skin jeans down to his ankles. He put his arms around the captain's waist and they embraced. You are beautiful, whispered Billy Bones. Their lips met and they kissed, their tongues entwining like two Argalian serpents in a wrestling match. Lie down on the bed, suggested the blue-skinned man. The youth lay face down on the pillow and lifted up his buttocks. Billy Bones knelt behind his new friend. He put his left arm around the boy's waist and guided his stiff blue cock slowly up the young Venusian's warm, moist arsehole with his right hand. The silver-haired youth gripped the pillow and sighed. The naked blue-skinned man rocked back and forth, pushing his penis deep into the boy's tight pink anus. I'm going to come, he whispered. Don't stop, sighed the boy. The zoom tube was packed with various alien species. It was a cylindrical glass vehicle and travelled high above the city on a monorail. The Venusian youth sat next to the blue-skinned man, resting his head on the captain's shoulder. Billy Bones kissed his companion on the forehead. We've arrived, he whispered, as the zoom tube approached the spaceport. The young silver-haired man opened his eyes and yawned. How is your arm? Asked the blue-skinned man. Silver clasped his right bicep with the left hand. Still a bit sore, he sighed. Captain Bones took off his jacket and rolled up the sleeve of his black and red striped sweater to reveal a black skull and crossbones tattoo on his right arm. Mine is still a bit scabby. It is my first tattoo, laughed the silver-haired Venusian. I hope you don't change your mind, smiled the blue-skinned man. These things are permanent. Silver giggled. That will never happen. I love you. Captain Bones rolled down his sleeve. Yeah, I've heard that one before. Chapter 5. The metal doors of the elevator slid open, and Captain Bones and his silver-haired companion stepped onto the bridge. I see you brought him with you, hissed the snake-headed woman, looking up from her console. The blue man sat down on the captain's chair, and the young Venusian stood at his side. The youth was wearing a silver jacket over a green and black striped sweater, and a pair of black plastine jeans tucked into his brown leather boots. This is Commander Silver, my first officer, smiled the captain. Is he qualified? Hissed Ebony. The blue man leant back in his chair and undid the top button of his jacket. He reached inside his pocket and took out a small, flat silver box. He opened the case and put a long purple Venusian cigarette between his lips. Silver lit the tapered end with a small golden cigarette light and smiled. The silver rings on his fingers sparkled under the white neon lights of the bridge. Captain Bones inhaled deeply from the purple tube and breathed out a plume of sweet-smelling violet smoke. He's qualified, the blue man sighed. Guacamole, the fish-like mermaid, swam about in her aquarium. Her emerald green scales glistened as she splashed her tail in the pink water. I've been analysing the local star maps, she gurgled. The Association control most of the planets in this sector. Captain Bones spun around in his chair to face his navigator. Where do you suggest we go? He asked. Guacamole gurgled. I recommend that we head as far away from this quadrant as we can. The Zaxian galaxy would be a sensible destination. Most of the planets in that sector are rich in mining deposits, and it is a popular trading route for the Uragi and Potash merchants. The blue man turned his chair towards the main view screen at the front of the bridge. Captain to all hands. Man your stations and prepare for takeoff, he ordered. Captain to engineering. What is your status? The pig-faced Tajian flicked a switch on the engineering console with a hoof-like hand. Hyperdrive engines are online and operating at maximum efficiency, replied the gruff voice of Chief Engineer Morgan. Silver sat down at the command console and pressed a few buttons. Coordinates for the Zaxian galaxy are programmed and our course is set. Life support systems are stable and the transcommunicator is active and working at 82% efficiency. Captain to Armory. Gunner, how are we doing for weapons? Sonic cannon is stable. Trimorphic torpedoes are loaded. Gravitron beam is fully charged and we have enough cluster mines to blow up a small battle fleet. Lasers are functioning at 100% accuracy and VAP guns are fully charged. Cheng Lo sat down at his desk and clenched his left fist. He picked up a small plastic syringe and injected the orange liquid into his arm. Lo dropped the empty syringe onto the floor, leant back in his chair and closed his eyes. Captain to sickbay, the blue man inhaled in his Venusian cigarette. There was no reply. Captain to sickbay, are you there? Faint giggling sound came from the intercommunication speaker, followed by some whispering and a loud coughing sound. Yes, Captain. I'm here, replied a hearty plum voice. What are you doing down there, Doctor? Bellamy sighed. Just giving Lieutenant Reed her medical. Tell her to report to the bridge, ordered the blue man in the captain's chair. Sorry, Captain, came the soft voice of Marie Reed over the intercom. His hands were all over the place. I don't want to hear your excuses, sighed the captain. The blue man shook his head and Ebony hissed. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir, on my way, sir, giggled Reed sarcastically. The main viewer buzzed and crackled into life and the rosy pink face of Calico Jackson appeared on the large screen at the front of the bridge. What is it, Jack? Asked Captain Bones. Calico Jack took a gulp from a bottle of Minovan wine and wiped the froth from his mouth with the sleeve of his multicoloured jacket. We've got enough supplies on board for a 3-month voyage. Cargo bays 1 and 2 are both full. How are we off for food? Asked the blue-skinned man. The one-eyed quartermaster smiled. Fine, as long as you like it fresh. Can't you freeze it? Asked Commander Silver, looking up from his console. Minovans only eat live animals, sir, sighed Calico Jack. Why don't you just kill some of them? Captain Bones scratched his bearded chin. Have you ever tried wrestling with a Tarkalian eelworm? Replied the rosy-cheeked human. Teach stood behind the captain, clenching his giant fists. I'll be down in a few minutes, I'm hungry. The blue-skinned man pressed a button on the captain's chair, and the view screen went blank. Captain to pilot, unlock the docking clamps and prepare for takeoff, he ordered. Aye, aye, sir, replied the sharp metallic voice of Excremillion. Captain to Morgan, start your engines. Yes, Captain, grunted the chief engineer. The captain turned his chair to face the small red furry boy sitting at the communications console. Do we have clearance, he asked. The red Felician nodded. We are clear for takeoff, purred Ben Gunn. Pilot, activate forward thrusters and get us out of here. Aye, aye, Captain Bones acknowledged the cyborg. There was a loud thundering roar, followed by a high-pitched whistling sound. Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries began to play at full volume throughout the ship. The small red furry communications officer purred contentedly to himself.